What are your short-term financial goals? Meaning a year or less. What are your medium-term financial goals? Maybe 1 to 3 years. What are your long-term financial goals? 10, 15, 20 years. And these goals, what are the plans and strategies in which you have in place to achieve these goals? Welcome back to another episode of the MD Investor, where we're doing all February, all Black History Month, Black Wealth. Today's episode, we're going to talk about we must spend time to discuss our finances. We must set aside time to discuss our finances. We set aside time for things that are important. That's what your job does. Your job has meetings and agendas and monthly meeting and quarterly meeting. That's what they do. We have to make our wealth priority. We have to make our wealth a priority. So we have to make time for what is important to us. We have to make time for our wealth. We have to make time for our wealth. We have to make time to discuss our wealth. Okay? So things have to be written down. Things have to be written down. There must be a plan. There must be actions taken. These must be evaluated and see whether they're working or not. They must be modified if they're not working, right? So these things have to be done. They're not magic. And this has to be discussed with your spouse and or partner, your children. They should be getting in the habit of minding their own business. Building wealth is our business, and it is our responsibility. Nobody else is going to do it for you. So we're early in the year, so it's a perfect example. People have their resolution, right? People have their New Year's resolution in place. So that same mindset, we have to have a plan, right? So your plan for 2024, you take a piece of paper, write it down, right? You have certain goals and objectives, right? Could be to pay off this credit card debt, to save $10,000 for my emergency fund, to invest in so and so, right? There can be multiple goals, but the goal is written down, the time frame that you have in which you want to accomplish it. Now, the methodology. How are we going to get the money to pay down this debt? How much do you want to pay per month, right? So you got to have a plan. And this stuff has to be discussed on a regular intervals, right? Things that are not measured or discussed don't get done. That's why businesses are so meticulous on their metrics. They measure it year over year. This metric has increased 2%. Year over year, it has decreased. They want to know what is their debt, what is the interest rate that is costing them. They want to know these things so they can attack them with a plan wisely. So we talked about in the beginning of the video, short term, medium term, long term, right? So you may have a short term plan. And the short term plan may be I want to pay off all of my credit card debt in the next 6 months. Okay, how much do you owe? What's the interest rate? What technique are you going to use? Are you going to use the debt snowball or the debt avalanche? The debt snowball, you arrange them in smallest amount to largest amount, regardless of the interest rate, and then you attack everything with and then you pay minimum on everything except for the first one, and then you pay as much as you can on the first. When that's done, you take the amount that you were paying on the first, and then attack, and then put that to the second one, and you keep going until you pay it off. Or you can use the debt avalanche. Line them up with the highest interest rate. Line them up with the highest interest rate, and then the next lower interest rate until you get to the lowest interest rate. and then you attack the one with the highest interest rate first, because that's how you're gonna save the most money. So whatever your strategy is, right? Where the money's gonna come from, how you're gonna do it. You recheck it maybe every month to see where you are, what progress you would reevaluate it maybe every month to see how you're doing, and just keep going until that's done. Like, we got to be intentional. We have to be so intentional, because the system and our mindset and everything around us just said, just relax and let it flow, brother. What's the matter with you, man? Take it easy. But that's how we got into this mess, by letting stuff just happen, right? When you just leave stuff to happen, it leads to disorder or entropy. Energy has to be put into something to make order, right? Just like your house. If you just leave it alone, it's going to be messy and dusty. To make it orderly, work has to be done. You got to vacuum, you got to sweep, you got to wipe, you got to, right? Same thing with your finances. Someone has to be in control. You have to be in control of your money. Then you look at your medium term. This is where I want to be. This is where I want to be in 3 years. This is where I want to be in 3 years, right? So then, if I want to have, let's put that number out there, $50,000 invested, then this is where the money is going to come from, right? You got the same money I was using to pay off the credit card. When the credit card is paid off, that same money will be going into my investment. You got to have a plan, okay? And you have to take the action. You have to have a plan, and you have to work the plan. And when you see progress, that lets you know I'm going in a direction. I'm right on track. I'm going in the right direction, but I'm a little behind. I need to speed it up, or I'm not going in the right direction at all. This needs to be reevaluated. What's the problem? And it is these little steps that's going to move you toward your long-term goal, right? Your long-term goal is going to be many, many small steps. Maybe your long-term goal is to buy a home. But before you do that, you have to get the down payment. But before you get the down payment, you have to pay off your debts, right? And we have to track and see if we're moving in the right direction. And we get positive encouragement. It makes us feel good. And we see that we're working towards something. And our money, which was out of control and disorderly, is now in control and orderly, because we have made it so. So this has to be initiated by us and our spouse, that you could teach our children. And you could teach your children that your money is very important, and you have to be the one in charge. Okay? So I would say at least once a month, you got to be talking about, okay, how are we doing? Are we still on track? And then you could compare, where we were in January to now where we are in February. What's the plan? What's the actions that we're going to take in February? Where do you see us going in March? And in April, where we're going to be? In May? When you do it like that in a small step, then after a couple of months, 6 months, you said, wow, we came a long way. We are on track to pay off all this debt, or we are on track to get the emergency fund, or we are on track to accumulate $25,000 in this portfolio, or we are on track to fund the 529. Whatever it is, you got to have a plan, and you got to work that plan. So then it becomes a habit. So when 2025 comes around, it's now a habit. I'm used to monthly evaluating where I am, quarterly looking at our net worth statement. You got to track, right? This is why a lot of times things are left on their own, and you wake up in 3-5 years and you realize, yeah, I've been working all the time, but I just have nothing to show for it. They got to be specific. They got to be measurable. They got to be attainable. Like, we can do this if we can achieve this if we stick with this plan. They got to be relevant, and they got to be time bound, right? If we do these things and incorporate these habits, right, by beginning to talk about our finances more with our family, our inner circle, our children, our friends, and stop making it such a taboo subject, right? Talk about money is supposed to be a taboo subject. You don't talk about money. You don't talk about politics. You don't talk about religion. You don't talk about well, people talk about sex all the time, but those are very important stuff. So again, guys, the MD Investor continuing the series on Black wealth, trying to increase our financial IQ so we can teach our children and break the cycle of generational poverty. MD Investor out.